on a little while ago, speaking about Brian Lee Durfee's Five Warrior Angel series, and my last video of the night is going to be about the Age of Madness series by Joe Abercrombie. So I don't believe Joe Abercrombie needs any introduction. He is one of, I would think, arguably one of the more popular fantasy writers out there right now. Certainly one of the most popular grimdark fantasy writers. I am a huge fan of Joe Abercrombie. I'll say that up front. I'm a huge fan of his First Law trilogy, which I believe he's best known for. The books, their First Law trilogy. I'll hold them up for you. That The Blade itself, which is the first book, Before They Were Hanged, book number 2, and the finale of the trilogy was The Last Argument of Kings. Now, that's the First Law trilogy, and essentially Joe Abercrombie wrote a follow-up trilogy to the First Law entitled The Age of Madness trilogy, and that's the trilogy I want to speak to you about tonight. So these are the books. Sorry, I have them in reverse order. Of course, that's me. Little Hatred, that's book number 1 of the trilogy. I do love the covers. They are fantastic. Book number 2. Make sure I got the right one here. Yes, I do. Okay. And 3, Trouble with Peace and The Wisdom of Crowds. So that is what the Age of Madness trilogy is comprised of. Now, I want to give you a preface this by speaking a little bit about First Law. I feel First Law is like you're starting at ground zero. This is a fantasy must read for a lot of fantasy fans. Okay, and I think it's a masterpiece. Why do people like First Law so much? I think the consensus is pretty well it's because of the character work. The character work that Joe Abercrombie does is astounding. His characters are so well drawn. They're so well fleshed out. They're so multifaceted. They all have these very distinct personalities. There's no blurring. You know when you're in the head of this character versus this character. It is just amazing. And I think that's what's made First Law so popular. That said, I believe the consensus criticism of First Law is that plot not really required. Now that's an opinion. My opinion is, yes, I love these books that perhaps sometimes the plot feels, disjointed. The stories they're chaotic, right? And part of the chaos is caused by the characters because the characters are always a hot mess. A lot of things seem very random, the way they occur. You don't look for consistency in terms of getting from point A to point B in these books, either the First Law trilogy or the Age of Madness. Focus. My advice, and again, I'm not one to typically give advice in general, but focus on the characters. If you're a character-driven reader like myself, there's so much to love here, so much to love. But if you're not, you're going to have to cling on tight to the characters and really, because there's always going to be so many changes in direction and shifts in direction, you're not going to find that contiguous, narrative that perhaps you're used to or perhaps you appreciate in your books, right? You have to look at, in my view, Abercrombie's work as extremely character-driven, fabulous, grimdark theater, right? And if you do that, you'll be fine. Now, if that's not for you, then my advice, of course, is maybe you want to find something else. This is still a really rich world, and it's not like there isn't world building and other aspects to focus on as well that are fabulous. And so I don't want to simply say that, okay, character no plot. That's it. There are a lot of other great elements. But again, I believe that the characters are what you really come to Abercrombie for. So let's talk about a bit about Age of Madness. So the it's again a follow-up trilogy to the First Law. It's basically, First Law, I think it was Age of Magic and Age of Madness, Dawn of the Machine. So industrialization and things such as that. And we have characters from the First Law that definitely appear in Age of Magic, and essentially it's that continuation. It's the next. It's like, think of Age of Madness as First Law, the next generation. So we get introduced to essentially the offspring of some of our most beloved characters in the First Law. So it does give you that context whereby you still get to enjoy some of your really beloved characters from First Law. And I have to say, I think anyone who knows me, I've said this before, that Sandang Locta from First Law is one of my favorite all-time fantasy characters ever. Probably my favorite ever, anywhere. He is just, yeah, he's just phenomenal. An extremely morally gray character with these layers of gold underneath. But I mean, he's a torturer. You just have to. There was a point in First Law where I knew I was just reading it for Sandang Locta, not that the other characters were phenomenal, because they are. And some of the characters, yeah, depending on your taste, you could read it just for that character. And even with the shifting POVs, where the other characters were compelling enough, you love them, but you had your favorite. Well, for me, it was Sandang Locta, and that he was the highlight of that series for sure. So for the main, I would say that to talk about Age of Madness, again, let's just simply talk mostly about the characters and the POV. So, excuse me, you have Reiki. She is the daughter of a character in the First Law series. She's in Age of Madness. Her father is a dogman, and she's also a seer or a prophetess. She's what's called the Long Eye. And that's the skill, the prophecy gift or magic in Age of Madness. And she can see in the future, but she also it takes a toll on her. She has these fits. But in any case, she is daughter dogman. She's grown up, somewhat sheltered in a way. She's but she's tough and she's fierce, and she's growing into her own very much in this book, and she's mentored by some of her father's friends as well. So her father's, he's older now, and he's kind of past it as as a warrior. He's still vicious and dangerous, but he's not what he was. So this is very much about her evolution, her coming into her own. Since she's one of the main POV characters in Age of Madness, the second one is Leo Dan Brock. Leo Dan Brock, he's a warrior. He wants to win fame in battle and prove to his mother, who's this powerhouse, this very formal woman, that he's capable as a leader, right? He's but he's he has some good qualities, but he's honest, he's brave, but he's also somewhat naive, and he's very idealistic, and he can be manipulated. He in his head, he envisions himself as this big hero, and that's the ideal he's trying to live up to. But he's flawed. He's got some bigotry in there, and that's probably his worst quality. He's also very self-obsessed, and he's always seeking attention and praise, and he's got some issue. Again, another messy Joe Abercrombie character, but fabulous. And then you have my favorite character, who, no surprise, is Sabine Dangokta, who is the daughter of San Dangokta, my favorite character, as I mentioned in First Law, and she's this this beauty, and but she's also like Sandra Glover. She's ruthless and she's business savvy, and she's can be really like really hard hearted, and she's got the manipulative aspect and the Machiavellian cunning of her father, and she's a business woman and she's a socialite, and she's my favorite character by far in in the book. I should also mention finally, there's Crown Prince Orso, who is another major character. I'd say he's kind of like the fourth place character, but he is, you know, um, his his POV and his story arc is fascinating. And again, his father is the ruler that was mentioned in that was a big character in the First Law trilogy. So you see this next generation, right? You have Prince Orso, you have Savine Danglocta, you have Rick, and you have I mentioned Leo Van. Oh, sorry, and this is where my brain goes. I mentioned Orso. So these characters now, the next generation, they're as messy and flawed as the previous generation in their own way, and their conflicts and the things that make their lives so messy is their interaction relationships with one another. That's what drives this series. And again, for First Law, you're reading it for the characters and the way they all exude this they all have this it factor to a certain degree, and they're all very charismatic to a certain degree, and they're also again really messed up. And you you want to pay close attention to everything that they do and everything that they say, because they everything that their actions and their words almost always have an impact on how the narrative proceeds. So again, this is almost a completely, to a fault in some ways, he would argue, character driven book. But I said again, there's aspects that are also that have nothing to do with characters that are phenomenal. Excuse me, I have to mention battle scenes. Joe Abercrombie's action scenes are visceral. They're fantastic. He is a master of writing battle scenes. I also have to mention the humor. Excuse me. Joe Abercrombie has this extremely ironic, dry, fabulous, ruthless wit that you will just love. If you like that stuff, you love the snarky, you know, it's hilarious. Joe Abercrombie is hilarious. So and his books are truly, they're high entertainment. That's how I think of it, as high entertainment. So again, if you like really character driven series, and if your desire for plot isn't as high, perhaps you focus on the characters more, this is a great series for you. If you like the wit, if you like the witty banter between characters, if you like those one liners, those cutting one liners, Joe Abercrombie's your man. He is truly funny, and his humor really shows through in his writing. And if you like those visceral, fabulous battle scenes and bloody, and that gritty, grimdark feel to your battle scenes, really well choreographed. Again, this is your book. So as you can see, there's so many positives. Just if you plot sometimes, I would have to agree. There's times when you may wonder where things are going, but they do get there. And again, this is a fantastic series by a fabulous author who is renowned, I'd argue world renowned, for the way he writes. And so I do recommend you check out Age of Madness, especially if you read the First Law. I think there's so much to love here, especially that feeling of the next generation coming to prominence, coming into their own, and you get to see what happens with the elder generation that you saw in First Law. So that's my review of the Age of Madness. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will